Thank you so much for joining this webinar today. Um, really to just set the intention, this is a session about understanding the cycles that we get stuck in. So I'm speaking to you today, so it's the cycles that you might be stuck in or the patterns that keep showing up. And getting you to understand how your nervous system plays a role in that, and then just sharing some powerful habits that will support you emotionally and physically in your well-being. So a little bit about me to begin with, and why I'm so passionate about the nervous system and helping people break their cycles is because for years I was stuck in my own cycle, and I was the ultimate people pleaser. I had no boundaries. I put everybody's needs before my own. Sometimes my own didn't even make the list. And that I have learnt through doing my work was really a fear of rejection. It was about fear of getting things wrong, and it was also a fear of other people's opinions of me. And I now understand as well that that was a survival strategy that I actually got from a very, very young age. I was brought up in the generation where they said that kids were seen, but they weren't heard. But personally, I felt that I wasn't seen or heard. And so to keep myself safe and not create any issues and be that good girl, if you like, I wouldn't say created, but I found that that coping mechanism of staying small and being quiet actually helped me survive. What I do realize now is it kept me in dysregulation and it held me back for a long time. So what did that look like for me? It looked like me being very anxious. It looked like never switching off, always in that mentality of having to get things done. Not really actually looking back thinking I was busy, but actually I was, because I never stopped. I didn't allow myself to rest and relax. I didn't particularly allow myself early nights. If I were tired, I wouldn't nap, because there was always something else to help someone else with. And I ended up, to be honest, exhausted and waking up about 3 years ago, feeling lost, not knowing who I was anymore, and actually not knowing what I wanted. And that's because I had really disconnected my body and mind in a way of, again, being able to survive. So what I would love for you to do is today just have an open, gentle curiosity about yourself. And this isn't to challenge you, but if you do feel triggered, maybe get curious about what it is that's creating that frustration or that irritation within you. So when we are stuck in cycles, we obviously, if we're not happy or we're not comfortable, we want to create that change. And the new year is the perfect time to do so, especially this year. For anyone that might be spiritual or anything like that, we've been told that come February, the year of the snake, which was for us to shed anything that we didn't want to bring into the new year with us, is gone. And it's the horse year, where courage and confidence is called for us to be able to move forward. So what a perfect time for wanting to be a happier, healthier you, and find those habits that can help with that. However, with courage and confidence, it means we need to take action. And it's a little bit of a tricky one, because if we don't take action, we don't get the courage or the confidence. So we have to take action to build that courage and confidence. And the other thing that I think is really important within that is making sure that you have self-compassion for yourself. So just taking into consideration things like, how do you speak to yourself? What language do you use? And what tone of voice do you use with that? So again, I'm just going to share a little bit about my experience when I realized how I spoke to myself. My coach that I worked with asked me, would I speak to somebody else like that? And absolutely not. I would never, ever have dreamt of it. She also asked me, though, if someone spoke to me in the way that I spoke to myself, how would I feel? And I realized that actually I'd think they were quite rude. and disrespectful. Yet I thought that it was all right for me to be like that with myself. And so that was a cycle that I got stuck in. And I started realizing that the tone of voice that I brought to that was more judgmental rather than curious. And instead of kind of saying to myself, oh my God, why are you stupid? Why did I do that? I started saying to myself, oh, that's interesting. That thought's back. I wonder why. What's going on there? So I started to get much more open and much more curious. And I started to recognize the cycles that I was in. So this is a stress cycle. Now, I'd love for you, if you can, while you're sat, to just have a think about what that looks like for you. So what event is it that usually creates that stress? Now, on this cycle, when there's something that's creating a stress, it then creates a stress response. Now, that stress response is basically your brain gut connection. So your brain will send out a hormone from your pituitary gland that's just in the back of your brain. That then tells your adrenal glands that something's happening, and your adrenal glands will throw out cortisol and adrenaline to give you that energy to be able to run or fight. Now, the cortisol effect, if it's an acute stress, so something like, say, if you drive, someone pulls in front of you, or someone makes you jump, or you have a fall, you will quickly sort of go, ow, that hurts, but then you're okay. And the cortisol stops, and your nervous system regulates and everything goes back to normal. But if that cortisol is dripping slowly throughout and you have that chronic stress, so chronic stress is something that is constantly going, or it happens regular. So again, it goes back to those cycles that we get stuck in, or those patterns that we're in. And that can create inflammation, which then can create a pain. And that can be bloating and digestive issues. It can be sensitive skin like eczema, psoriasis, hives or rashes. It can be achy joints or muscles. And so it creates something. And then there's a feedback loop of stress that then goes back to that event. So can you see a cycle that you might get stuck in, or a pattern that keeps turning up for you? And where could you maybe, with some of the habits and the practices that I'm going to share, could you maybe start breaking that cycle and that loop? So I just want to also say that when we talk about gut health, we're not just talking about digestion, we're talking about our nervous system. That gut-brain connection is your nervous system. And so also with your brain, we're talking about your mindset as well, because when we're trying to create those new habits, our mindset helps shape how we respond when things might be going well, how we build those habits, and also how resilient we can be when life gets hard. Because when we're trying to create change, quite often life will throw us a curveball just to make sure that we actually really want it. So from a mindset point of view, what we have to remember is that our thoughts create our emotions create those actions that we want to take, and those actions create the results that you want to actually achieve. Now, if we just set ourselves a goal, we can be here, or the goal's here, we're here, and I will use weight loss, for instance. We decide we want to lose weight, we decide how much we want to lose, and that is the goal. And that's amazing. 9 times out of 10, you will actually achieve that. But then you will bungee jump back because you've not thought about what's next. So within the mindset things, what I'd love you to start thinking about is, who is she? Like, she's lost that weight, or whatever it is for you, that's your goal. But beyond that, what are the habits, what are the strategies that actually help her sustain that as a sustainable lifestyle, so she's not bungee jumping back and forth all the time. And also remembering that we work subconsciously 95% of the time. We have 5% of our conscious brain. And so really what creating change is about, and being able to introduce those new habits, is actually building that awareness. So building it so that that 95% becomes more you've been aware and you've changed those habits, rather than the ones that are holding you back and keeping you stuck. Our brain doesn't know what's real and what's not. And at the same time, it doesn't know what an empowering thought is or what a destructive thought is. All it knows is what's going round in our minds most of the time. So if you repeat often enough what you're telling yourself, it becomes your reality. So what I would say to you as well is, when we're creating change, get that awareness of what the stories and the beliefs are that you're constantly telling yourself. And again, it comes back to that communication. When you're looking in the mirror, what are you saying to yourself? Are you telling yourself you look beautiful? Are you telling yourself you feel good? Or are you telling yourself that you're absolutely shattered all the time? I don't know, however you're telling yourself that you want to look, that becomes your reality, because that's what your brain is hearing and that's what it's going to create. And so that gut brain connection is really important for making sure that you're aware of the emotions and the thoughts that go together.
Move.
Sorry.
Move.
So when I talk about the nervous system, you can see the brain. Hopefully you can see clearly on these slides, but you can see the brain. And if you put your fingers just at the bottom of your head, you'll find that there's two like little dips that just is where your spine starts. Now, either side of that is your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve is the largest nerve in your body. And from that, there's lots of branches. So again, on the image, you can see that all those branches are connected to every single main organ in your body. So when we are in sympathetic, which is long term, it's all right to go into it short term every so often with that acute stress. So like if you're working out, for instance, you need to be in that sympathetic state to be able to have that energy to actually do the workout, especially if it's high rocks or something like that. But if you're in that state long term, what happens is things start down regulating, and the first thing to down regulate is your digestive system, because when you're in that sympathetic state for a long time, as I said before, with your stress response, you've got the cortisol and the adrenaline that's constantly feeding through, and so you're in constant needing to run or to fight. And so your pupil dilation will get fixed because you're ready to go. Your digestion, your body doesn't see it as important, so you can eat whatever you like. You will not absorb or break down nutrients from that food that you're choosing anyway. Your heartbeat starts getting faster, and long term that might look like panic attacks or something like that. That means that your airways start narrowing a bit, so you start breathing a lot more shallow. Your liver isn't helping with the detox and breaking down of your old hormones and all the other stuff that it's meant to do. It's focused on just converting glucagon to glucose so that you can again have that energy to run. And that will then impact things like fertility. And as ladies, it can make our cycles irregular, because again, it's not focused on making sure that our body is actually balanced and working properly. It's actually in survival and trying to keep us safe. So when you look at the parasympathetic side of that, that is where everything is more in flow, in rhythm. You know, your cycles will be a lot more balanced. You'll be digesting and you'll be absorbing your nutrients. Your liver will be working how it's meant to. Your bowels will be better because hopefully you won't have got the bloating and the discomfort or the constipation. And your breathing will be a lot more regular and deeper, and your heartbeat will be slower. So everything is more regulated. Now, for a long time, we used to teach this all the time, and it was great. But all it gives really is the is the mental and the physical side. This doesn't really go into the emotional, and the emotional part is the really key bit to being able to recognize when you're going into that dysregulation and when you are in a more calm, in flow kind of cycle. So this is what you call the polyvagal theory. It was a concept that was created by Stephen Porges, and as you can see, there's 3 different levels. So you've got your sympathetic in the middle, which is your fight and flight. You've got the green bit at the bottom, which is ventral vagal. So that is a part of your parasympathetic. And then you've got the dorsal vagal that's blue. Now that is another layer of your parasympathetic. What I want to say is that ventral vagal is where you feel safe, you're calm, you are happy to socialize with people, you know, you are compassionate to yourself, you've got that curiosity and openness about life. And then you've got the sympathetic, which, like I said, is your fight or flight. So it gives you the emotions that you're likely to feel. When you're in fight, it's rage, anger, irritation, frustration. And flight is panic, fear, anxiety, worry, and concern. And then if you get into freeze, which can also be formed, this is where you can be people pleasing as well. This is where it's more shut down, freeze, and you're low energy. You start getting really fatigued and exhausted. And the reason I want to share this with you is because when you look at these things, it's all of the like, especially in the freeze, it's some of the emotions that we don't necessarily always want to actually acknowledge. So the shame, the shutdown, the numbness, and things like that. But what I want to bring to your awareness is that when we are dysregulated, that's when we really need to be in regulation. And quite often, we will reach for things thinking that we are relaxing or we're just chilling out, you know, not having to think about things. But what we're actually doing is chasing dopamine, which is your flexibility and your motivational hormone, to try and make us feel better. Now, that isn't necessarily helping us heal or feel. Sorry, I'm just going to take a drink. Depending on what you're using, it's actually taking you into that dorsal vagal part of your nervous system, because what we're doing is avoiding the feeling. And so we're numbing ourselves rather than allowing ourselves to feel and work through those emotions to actually help us come back into ventral vagal in a healthy way. Now, from a gut health point of view, we need our gut ideally to be regulated because of the amount of things that it actually does for us. So 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, is actually made in your gut. A good 80% of your dopamine hormone is also made in your gut, alongside other neurotransmitters like your GABA neurotransmitter, which is also your relax and calm. 90% of our immune system's made in our gut, and the majority of our hormones are actually produced in our gut as well. So it's really important for us to remember that when we're going into these states of sympathetic or freeze, we're not making the hormones that we need. And so we'll end up with feelings of anxiety, worry, just not knowing what to do. And that can bring up lots of different symptoms or signals, as I call them. So when I was in the midst of trying to get out of my what was burnout for me. And I say that because burnout looks different for everybody. It depends what symptoms you have. But when I was in the midst of my coming out of my burnout, some of the things that I'd not recognized was the anger that I'd actually just kept pushing down, and the frustration of putting everybody else first. But I couldn't go from the dorsal vagal, where I was people pleasing and I felt frozen, straight through to ventral vagal. I really had to go from freeze, feel the emotions of the anger and the irritation and the frustration, and allow them to move, to be able to get to that ventral vagal. Now, like I said before, these aren't bad if you're not stuck in them for long periods of time. Ideally, on a day-to-day basis, you want to be going between at least ventral vagal and fight or flight, because you do need some stress to get up in the morning, to go and have a workout, and actually to find that courage and that confidence to be able to go and do the actions that you want to do, that's going to actually change your habits and allow you to become who you want to become. So building that awareness of where you are is important, because you'll start recognizing when you're going into dysregulation, and it's a lot easier to move yourself out of that when you've got that awareness, rather than just sitting in it for a long time for fear of not understanding what's going on. So here are some of the ways that you can recognize whether you're in dysregulation or not. Now, you might look at that and some of you might be thinking, I don't really have any of those. Others might be thinking, gosh, I've got a few. And there might be a few of you going, oh my gosh, but I've got lots of them. The ones that I didn't realize that I was in was the should. So I used to tell myself I should do this, I should be doing that, I should, which was really just shaming myself into things that I didn't really want to do, if I'm totally honest. But you can look at some of these things from the slide that I showed before with the polyvagal theory, and just see where some of them are keeping you numb, and some of them might be keeping you in that fight or flight. But what I want to reassure you is, when you look at this, if you are sat there thinking, oh my God, I always told myself that it was a personality trait, that I was procrastinating, or I people pleased, or I worried, or, I was always peacekeeping. Actually, that was my survival strategy. I wasn't self-sabotaging, I was keeping myself safe. So I want you to realize that you can change this, and it's not you. It's a survival strategy that your nervous system just might have learnt, and your body is literally here to keep you safe. It's not trying to go against you. This is really about you being able to lean in and listen to what she's asking of you. And that's where I was disconnected. I didn't know what she was saying, because I didn't understand. And the way that I managed to do this was to actually get out of my head, because in the society that we live in, a lot of us are in our heads, and allow myself to drop into my body and feel. So a way that you could do that is, when you've got a thought that might come up on a regular basis, you actually ask yourself, oh, that's interesting, that thought's there again. Where am I feeling that? And it could be that your chest goes tight, you could clench your jaw, it might be in your gut. But when you can start connecting the thoughts to the feelings, you can start helping yourself create those changes, and ask her, what do you need right now? Because she will guide you in what you need. And it might just be a few minutes out of breathing, because quite often when we're in a busy day, if you check in to your breathing, you might find that you're either breathing really shallow, or you're not breathing at all, because you're waiting for the next thing to come. So you're too busy with everything else other than to think about how you're breathing, or how you're feeling, or where you might be holding that tension. So 5 pillars to regulate. So these are 5 ways that you can really support your body and mind, that nervous system regulation. And sleep is the most important one. I know a lot of us struggle with sleep, especially depending on where you are in your cycle. But the importance of rest is just like, it's one of the biggest things that you can do for your health. Sleep is so healing. It's the time when our bodies are actually repairing and regenerating on a cellular level. And that's one of the reasons why we always say that you ideally would finish eating 3 hours before you go to bed. So all your digestion is done and your gut can then start really repairing and regenerating. And the same with your liver and your brain. You know, sleep really helps with helping to support your detox pathways and your lymphatic system, as well as your glymphatic system, which is the system that actually helps clear old cells in your brain and allows you to renew them. So other ways of deep rest and non-negotiable time that you could maybe book out for yourself is things like meditations. That might be a guided one. It might be just some binaural beats that you can get on most of the music apps these days. It might be allowing yourself, if you can, if you're tired, to go back to bed and either just lay there and chill or actually have some sleep. It could be reading or gardening or something that's actually allowing you pleasure, that brings you back to being present. So I don't mean like if you're gardening, you're starting to like really dig stuff up. You might just be sat doing a little bit of weeding or even just enjoying your garden and just sitting there and just relaxing and just being. The second one is hydration. So again, water is one of the most important nutrients that as humans, our bodies actually need. Lots of us are dehydrated, and I find myself still some days struggling to get the amount of water that my body needs to really flush those toxins and really help to support my nervous system. And water can help with clarity of the mind. It can help with your energy levels. It helps with glowing skin. There's so many things that water will do for us. So there's lots of different calculators online for you to be able to go in and put your height and your weight and all the different information you need to see how much water you need individually. But for me personally, I have a rule of thumb of 2 to 3 litres of plain water a day, ideally mineralised, but if you've only got tap water or something, it's better than nothing. So really getting those hydration levels up. And then I tend to start my day with hot water and lemon, again, to support cleansing my liver and my kidneys and supporting those detox pathways, but also because lemon is an amazing electrolyte. So having some electrolytes in some water throughout the day is good as well, because you're really supporting your kidneys and you're making sure that you're keeping those mineral salt levels up, especially magnesium for us ladies. The next one is sunlight. So how natural light regulates. So as you all know, sunlight is a great source of vitamin D, but it also actually regulates our circadian rhythms, and it also helps to regulate our mood. So it's really, really important. And it also impacts on our energy levels. When you think like today, I'm in Lincoln, so I don't know what it's like in Sheffield, but in Lincoln, it's grey, it's wet, and it doesn't feel that great outside. It's cold. But come spring, summer, when the sun's out, you wake up, you've got the energy, you want to be outside, you know, it really impacts us. So even though we don't have a lot of sun in the UK at the minute, just getting outside and just having daylight on your skin will still help with those things. Movement. So this isn't about you beasting yourself in the gym. It's about just gentle movement. So it could be some gentle stretches when you first get up in the morning. And then again, it might be gentle stretches that you can create as a night routine before you go to bed. Or it could be yoga, or I'm a real Reformer Pilates girl now. I love Reformer Pilates. but it could also be just going for a walk. So that can be first thing in the morning, or it could be 10 minutes after you've eaten to help with your digestion, but getting out and moving. And if you're going out and walking, in all fairness, you're killing two birds with one stone because you get the sunlight or the daylight, so it's a win. I know lots of people have walking pads, so if you're working in an office, that's something that you could maybe do, have a walking pad and actually be getting your steps in that way. But really, it's just finding what works for you. But movement really helps to regulate and soothe your nervous system. And then the last one, which I know looks like nutrition because we've got an apple and we've got a burger, but it's actually about blood sugar regulation. So yes, clean quality nutrition is absolutely a foundation of supporting your nervous system, but we are here to live and have fun. So if you want that burger, have it. It's finding whatever balance is for you that still keeps you in that regulation. And with blood sugars, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my journey is that, as I said in the beginning, if you're in that fight or flight, you can eat as cleanly as you like. You're not absorbing or breaking down your nutrients anyway. So it won't be helping, because if you are dysregulated, your blood sugars won't be stabilized anyway. So one of the things that I really learned about myself was if I'm not hydrated, or if I haven't moved enough in the day, or if I haven't had enough sleep, my blood sugars are all over the place, no matter what I eat. So good quality nutrition is important, but doing all of the 5 things that we're talking about here today is really going to help regulate your blood sugar levels, which will help keep your nervous system more calm and enable you to start thinking about the habits that you really want to take and run with to become who you want to become. So on that note, I've got a little reflective exercise. Now, these are some journal prompts, but what I'd love you to do to begin with is we're going to sit. I'm going to give you about 5 to 7 minutes, because if anybody wants to do these now, if you've got a pen and paper, you can write them down. If you don't feel that you want to do them now, you can take a screenshot, or I know Liz said that she was going to share these with you. But what I'd like you to do to begin with is just close your eyes or soften your gaze. And I'd like you to think about where you want to be physically, emotionally, and energetically in the next few months. And then I'd love you to think about, who do you want to become? What habits would support that version of you? And then if you want to do some journaling, then please feel free to do so. And like I say, I'll give you a few minutes to just do that. And then slowly exhale fully through your mouth, releasing any tension. And if you feel like sighing when we're doing this, it doesn't matter if noise comes out, just do whatever's right for you. So again, breathing deeply, feeling your body expand and exhale slowly, letting go of any stress or any tightness. And with the next few breaths, try to take your exhale slightly longer than your inhale, because this helps to activate the calming part of your nervous system. So it helps put you into that ventral vagal side. And as you breathe, notice any sensations in your body. Is there anything feeling a little bit tense or a little bit just out of alignment? And as you keep doing your breath work, keep checking in, because maybe your shoulders will start feeling softer, or maybe you'll have unclenched your jaw, or maybe your chest might feel tighter. And if your mind wanders, gently bring your attention back to your breath, like a wave returning to the shore. And again, I'm just going to give you a few minutes to just keep checking in with your breath and having those longer exhales. And then just take one last deep breath in and slowly release. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and return your gaze back to the room. Now, what I want to say is, as it says on the screen, change is a process, it's not perfection. So we can absolutely become a healthier, happier version of ourselves. Building awareness, understanding who she is key to that process. So hopefully you have some insight on what's going on within your unique body, where you might be dysregulated, and how you can regulate by embracing those 5 pillars to help support your body and mind. Please give yourself lots of self-compassion and self-love as you go on this journey. On the slide, there's ways that you can stay in touch. My website's down at the minute and we can't figure out why. So you've just got my email there, because I can't see the point in sharing the website if it's taking you to nowhere. I've just developed a new community page, which is full of tips, or will be full of tips and support. So please feel free to join me there. And I also work with the Wellness Network, where we do retreat days and workshops. So the next retreat or retreat day, should I say, is February the 21st at Bainland Lodges in Woodall Spa. And if you want to see how you can work with me, then feel free to drop me an email. I do have 5 spaces at the minute to be able to work with people one-to-one. And just thank you for joining me. And if anyone's got any questions, then let me know.